All right, welcome back to the DG Podcast. I want to apologize on behalf of myself and everyone else here. There was no hangover last week, so everyone who listens to it, hi, Dad. We missed it because I was too busy being drunk in Boston watching my two friends get married. As always, I'm Daniel Palmer at dpalm66 on the Twitters. You can find everything we write about at dudeyoukcrazy.net. Subscribe in the iTunes Store or on Stitcher.com. Leave 5-star reviews. We'll read them on the air, regardless of content, even if it's mocking. Let's mock Chad. Let's not mock me. I always say mock me. Let's mock Chad this time if anyone's listening and wants to leave a message. Maybe that'll make him leave more messages. I'm joined today, talking to the NBA, Mr. Chad Floyd. Chad_Floyd on Twitter. What up, Chad?
Not too much. I'm open to being mocked right now because I'm still riding high from the Hornets having a great draft.
And that's where we're going to
So,
start today. We're going to start with your favorite thing. First of all, if you hadn't read it, go read it. Chad Floyd doing NBA running diary for the first round of the draft. A lot of good points, a lot of good mocking of suits. Chad, just in quick overview, who's your biggest winner from the draft?
I hate to say it because Bill Simmons would have a conniption, but the Boston Celtics, I thought Marcus Smart getting him at 6 is a great pick because he could either replace Rondo, play alongside Rondo in a backcourt that can't shoot, or kind of be the big physical hulking point guard of the future. The dude's 6'3", 227. He could have played tight end in the NFL.
No, he couldn't, but that's what you're saying.
Yeah, probably not. But then they pick up James Young, who slipped. I think he's the youngest player in the draft, but just a dead-eye shooter, which, in today's NBA can never have enough shooters.
It's very true.
As a Hawks fan, I bet you know that pretty well.
As a member of Spurs East, I agree with your assessment. All right, let's get a little personal here before we go to the top of it. Let's keep it things that we care about. You said the Hornets, you hired the Hornets draft. What made it so great and notable?
Doug McDermott. First of all, we did not make the mistake of taking a high-scoring, underwhelmingly athletic white guy that plays no defense and try to stick him at the 3 like they did with Adam Morrison so many years ago.
Wait. You're saying Adam Morrison 2.0 wasn't a good fit for the Hornets?
Well, Adam Morrison 2.0 is not a great fit for anybody, but Adam Morrison does have an NBA championship ring. Last I checked, neither one of us do.
Very true.
But people, pundits keep on talking about how the Bulls got a great steal in McDermott. But I guess that's just because the Bulls, are only going to play 6 or 7 guys, so the 4 minutes a game McDermott plays, you might make a couple shots.
See, I'll say this about the Bulls. The only thing I noticed about the Bulls last year is that they had negative shooting on the floor at all times. So from that perspective, I got the McDermott. I understood it. Like you, I think he's a little underwhelming athletically. Maybe he's the dead-eye shooter that he might be. I don't know. But if he is cutting D Rose and a great passer in the high post and Joakim Noah, couldn't really hurt having McDermott on the outside, I guess. Maybe.
I don't know, and I hate to make these comparisons because I'm about to put his career arc between 2 white guys, but
lazy racial comparisons.
And Matt Bonner. I'm going to power right through it. He might be a more versatile Matt Bonner in the NBA.
Matt Bonner's got rings.
This is also true.
All right, let's go to the team I care about, the Atlanta Hawks. I need you to educate me on some of these picks because I don't know who these cats are because I don't watch college basketball.
Right.
Let's look at Adrian Payne, who's looking at his player card right now on ESPN. Got some size to him.
Yeah, you're gonna like the Adrian Payne pick, I think.
I don't like his picture on the draft analysis. It's a derpy picture, but
I was looking up the other guys y'all drafted, and there are no pictures of either of them. So Payne's a step up from that at least.
Fair enough.
But he's a guy that a good inside-outside 4. He played the 5 at Michigan State. Probably about Al Horford's size, and honestly, his skill set is that of a poor man's Al Horford. So the way I told my buddy Evan the other night when they drafted Payne, I said, if y'all had Payne in there instead of Perry Antich, y'all probably beat the Pacers in the first round.
Well, I don't know. It's interesting to think about because a lot of the reasons the lineup gave them trouble was that the range Antich had on the court. So it's really pretty to blame those cutting wings.
But Payne gives you that and then so much more. I mean, he's a big old hulking dude too.
All right, 6'10", 239. I'm not complaining, man. It looks like Michigan State kids. I'm always a fan of because they coached up early. They know how to take coaching. Coming to Atlanta, as long as he can pass out of the post, he's cool with me. Because like I said, Spurs East, we're all about dropping them shots. Let's talk some more about the draft. Let's go backtrack a little bit. Top of the draft, Milwaukee Bucks, who we'll be talking about at length later. Excuse me, not the Bucks. Oh yeah, the Bucks and Cavaliers. Wiggins, Parker, Embiid. It kind of shook out the way you and I discussed in the podcast last week. Were you surprised to see Embiid go at 3?
To the Sixers, absolutely. I mean, they drafted 2 guys in the top 10 that are not going to play for them next year. And if you'll recall, this is exactly what they did last year, drafting Nerlens Noel. So they now have 2 potentially game-changing shot-blocking centers with injury histories that are not going to provide any improvement in the immediate future for the Sixers. I just didn't really get it at all. I feel like after Wiggins and Parker went 1-2, teams probably would have been clamoring to move up to 3 and take Embiid. I don't think it's a fit for Philly. You're close to it. I'd love to hear what's going on in Philly based on, just surrounding that pick.
Oh, I have no idea. All I know is that it seems to me, especially with the way Sam Hinkie's run this team the last year, you can't have enough assets. I'm not defending a pick. I don't care about the Philadelphia Sixers pick, but I'll say this: that watching it happen, it looks like Nerlens Noel or Embiid's going to be on the trade block. And I'll tell you what's more valuable than the third overall pick. It's a proven commodity who's got at least a year of NBA time under his belt, if it's on the court or not. Like Nerlens Noel spent a year learning to be a pro, spent a year getting stronger, spent a year in the gym. Looks like we're going to have at least 4 to 5 months of that with Embiid. These are guys you can flip for actual prospects and for more draft picks down the road. It looks like he's Belichicking it, and if that's what it is, hey, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but at least he's trying something out there.
True, and I mean, asset collection worked for the Houston Rockets, I would have to say.
Yeah, and as a guy who came from the Morey system, I have a little bit of faith in the guy. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but like I said, at least it's something creative, taking a shot. Second overall pick.
Now let's answer the real question here. With Philly set to suck again next year, how excited are you about being able to get into NBA games for about $4 a pop if you're still in the area?
This glut of cheap tickets is a big benefit to me. I'm not complaining there. I ride with Sam Hinkie. Number 2 overall pick was Jabari Parker. I know you and everyone else in America kind of flipped back and forth on these two. Was him going second the right pick?
After Wiggins at 1, I mean, I think Parker's going to probably have the highest floor of anybody in this draft.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the guy can straight up score. And, that's a valuable thing to have at any time. I really don't think he's ever going to be a defensive stopper, and I think in the right system, that could be in Milwaukee with Larry Sanders man in the middle if he is no longer insane.
Oh, Larry's gone. You can't keep Larry there. Larry's gone.
Nah. Well, in that case, I mean, if you could play him as a stretch 4 like Melo played when the Knicks were actually decent a couple of years ago, that would be the ideal spot for him. He's not going to overwhelm on defense, but he's a smart player. He gets in position for rebounds, and I think, he's a future All-Star, I think, but not necessarily a future superstar.
That's a very fair assessment. Let's go to the top of the draft. Cleveland Cavaliers picking first overall it feels like the 3rd time in 5 years. Andrew Wiggins.
Why does it feel that way?
Because it is that way. It's crazy. Andrew Wiggins. Was he out of Kansas?
Yep.
Okay, out of Kansas. What do you think about him? I know you said that Jabari Parker's got the highest floor. Where does Wiggins' floor then?
Wiggins, his floor is probably as a Gerald Wallace type, but his ceiling is much, much higher than that. He's the best prospect in my opinion in this draft, even more so than a healthy Embiid because he's just so athletic, dynamic. Both times I watched him last year, I saw him put up over 35 points and did so just effortlessly. Off the dribble, coming off screens, hitting pull-ups, just doing everything offensively. And then going into the draft, everybody's talking about how his defense is ahead of his offense. And that's just, there's too much drafting on potential in the NBA. Zach LaVine and the Timberwolves. But his ceiling is just nuts, nuts, nuts high.
What do you think? Let's call it best case scenario. He's mentored early. He's not too much weight's put on him early, but he's allowed to develop within a system. It looks like maybe a Euroball type system. What's his ceiling? What's his comp of the ceiling? Best possible scenario. What do you think his comp is out of current NBA players or past ones?
Out of current NBA players, let's see. This is a. I was trying to run through my '90s little Rolodex of players
he's a
here.
slasher too.
Yeah, I mean, early on, if you want to be quite honest with you, he could do young Kobe things if he is in the right system and everything goes right for him.
Okay, he's also a bigger guard, 6'8". I was thinking, like I said, I only saw him once play this year. I thought I saw T-Mac flashes.
Yes,
with
very
the
much so.
long wingspan, the ability in space. I'd like to see his shooting improve, but you can say that about any guy who's coming out of this current college system. I think that, obviously I'm not a college basketball guy, but from all the hype I've heard and from everything I've seen, I think, like you said, this could be the best player in the draft. The downside, the questions I have is he's going to a city that's Cleveland, first of all. He's going to play with a point guard who may be gone in 2 years. We're going to see a first-year EuroLeague coach. I didn't think this is one of the best situations for him to learn to be a pro. But if his strength of character and everything I've heard about him is as true as it could be, this could be a team he owns for the next 10 years.
Well, the thing is, I mean, he's also playing with to your point, a shoot first point guard in Kyrie Irving and a shoot first backup point guard in Jarrett Jack, and then a shoot first two guard in Dion Waiters. And I just don't know. I don't know if he gets enough touches to really develop the way he ought to, at least initially. But I think given a couple of years and given somebody putting some stability in that Cleveland roster, if it's the new coach or whoever. I'm just afraid his development is going to be stilted because at the end of the day, we're talking about Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes, Cleveland, Ohio. It's important to communicate to everybody that Cleveland, because God hates Cleveland, and that's a fact.
It is kind of sad though. The most exciting prospect in both sports drafts ended up in Cleveland this year.
It is interesting, and hopefully that city doesn't ruin these two people for us to be watching for the future. And that's just because I'm selfish. I don't care about Cleveland. I want to be entertained. All right, so let's go back to, for my money, is the biggest story of the NBA so far in this early offseason. The best player in the world is a free agent. And when it happened, I put a post up on the blog, and I made it very clear there's two things that are happening. Either he's out here and gunning for everything, or he and the other boys have decided to take a little bit less money, strengthen the squad around them, maybe shoot Dwayne Wade, I don't know, and try to make another run as the Heat. From everything I've seen, I think, what do you think LeBron's next move is? I know it's crazy but honestly, and this is a great point I've heard made, he's the ghost GM of every team in the NBA right now. Now that he's a free agent, every team has at least something of a LeBron play. They want to know
has a contingency in case LeBron
if he
decides,
called,
hey, I want to go to Salt Lake City.
If he called, they know what they would say. Every team. And so that's he's led the class of some very notable opt-outs. The other the big two in Miami, also Udonis Haslem. We've seen Carmelo opt out in New York. What do you think, if you're LeBron James, and let's just be honest, neither of us can ever actually conceive of the kind of power that he's wielding right now. He's got 30 NBA owners frozen in their seats, waiting on his next move. What do you think the best move is for LeBron?
God, that's such a loaded question. There's really no good answer to that. I mean, you could put him in a situation in Houston where there's only one ball and you couldn't roll out more than one for Harden, and Dwight Howard. There's no real perfect situation for LeBron. I think what's going to happen is LeBron's going to take on a little bit more money than both D-Wade and Bosh, and they're going to try to put a couple more pieces around them for about 2 or 3 more good runs at a championship in Miami. I think that's the best situation for LeBron if Dwayne Wade's getting paid somewhere around like the veteran minimum.
Well, he's making more than the veteran minimum, but I know what you're saying. I have a question. So this has been something brought to me, is that LeBron in recent months has brought up the idea of the max salary and how it's, in this sport among all sports, it's totally unfair because, let's just say, if you could give LeBron James market value, you'd pay him $40 million a year. And another point the guy made to me that I'd never known before, he's never been the top guy paid on his team. Ever. He's never made the highest salary on his team. I think the last 2 years he and Bosch were tied for the highest salary on the Heat, but he's never made the most money on his team. And for you and me, like that, like it's the difference between $20 and $21 million. Who really cares? But for LeBron, who's so intensely competitive and who's very aware of these things and who's been making notable noise behind the scenes about the caps on the maximum amount to be paid to a player, do you think there's a situation where that could really come into effect?
Well, on one hand, you have the pundits talk about how he's not an alpha dog, and then on the other hand, he's not paid like an alpha dog. So you have that going into it. I love looking at the other names that have exceeded his pay since he's been the best player on the planet. Ben Wallace, in his waning years, I forgot he had played for Cleveland, actually.
Yeah.
Shaq, when he was just a corpse on the court, or a Buick, or something that did not move with any regularity, consistency, or ambition. But no, I mean, LeBron deserves to be the highest paid player on the team. I don't think he would take the max salary in Miami just because it would preclude them from doing other things. But he absolutely could market his talents to 29 other teams, and they would make it work to where he would be a max player, and they would end up in the NBA Finals next year.
It's very true. What do you think the other two big three are thinking about doing? I think Boston's back at a reduced rate. The question now is what number does D Wade get? Because after that anemic performance in the last two NBA Finals, you've got to really question the idea of paying him on the same level with LeBron and Bosh.
And it's really, and the problem with it is he's only 2 years older than both of them, but he's got so much more tread on his tires.
Yeah, so much fewer tread.
And they sat him out for a third of the season this year, and he was great in the Eastern Conference playoffs. But you and I could have won a game in the Eastern Conference playoffs somewhere in there. It was not. It was not a. It was not exactly your murderer's row field. But I mean, his finals performance was like there's absolute zero. There's Mario Chalmers. Then there's Dwayne Wade, and he was just above Rio. I mean, if he commands more than my number that I've kind of valued him at around the mid-level exception, about $5 million a year, I don't think Wade would do that without a little wink-wink front office job in the future. But I don't know. Where do you think this lands?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see the number it comes in at because seeing him get even 15 mil a year would be a shock to me. I'm thinking and the thing is he's not going to get to Miami. I don't think it's a lock he's back in Miami. If you're the Charlotte Hornets and you're trying to respark a franchise, doesn't 3 years for 40 sound attractive to rent D Wade?
I just can't see it though.
Hey, you know what? You're talking from a background perspective. I'm speaking from just a team morale, city morale, what it would do for a franchise that's been down. You could rent an aging NBA player 3 for 40 isn't a ridiculous deal for him. It's a little over 12.
No, that's what they gave Al Jefferson last year.
Yeah,
although Al Jefferson at this point is twice.
And so, all I'm saying is that there's going to be a marker for Dwayne Wade. It's not going to be what we've seen historically. There's an article right now on ESPN.com that I think is very interesting. Brian Windhorst, who works for ESPN, but has written about LeBron James since the kid was 16. He's citing sources, which means it's probably LeBron's people. LeBron James wants a max salary. We don't know this is a smoke screen. We don't know. There's a lot of reasons for this to happen. We're staying on the cusp at 12:01 tonight. Free agency starts. But just seeing that coming out of what's been effectively LeBron's mouthpiece is in the least shocking, don't you think?
Well, I mean, I think we touched on it a couple minutes ago, but if that's the case, he's best served not to be in Miami.
That's true.
I mean, that's an absolute fact. At that point, I think Chicago becomes a real threat for him. But, again, he has been the best player in the world. He's the alpha dog of the planet as far as it goes in basketball circles, and he's been that way for the past 6 years, and he's never been the highest paid player on his team. He deserves a max salary. He he can get so much from endorsements that I don't think that's going to be his highest priority. But honestly, LeBron, get it how you live. If you want a max salary, go get your max salary.
Yeah, I think it's kind of improved in the last couple of years that no matter where he signs, they're your odds-on favorite to win their conference, if not the NBA. They're an odds-on favorite to be in the NBA Finals, wherever he ends up.
He drug Zagreus Ilgauskas, Drew Gooden, Sasha Pavlovic, and Eric Snow to the NBA Finals.
That's Eric Snow's second NBA Finals because he went with the Sixers again in 01. Just saying.
Okay, can I get you back to a number just for D Wade for a second?
Fair enough.
The number that Zebo just re-signed with Memphis for 2 years, $20 million.
I think Wade doesn't sign anywhere for.
Are they overpaying for D Wade at $10 million a year?
I don't think he signs anywhere for fewer than 3 years, and I think that's one of the intricacies of the whole situation. LeBron could take a 1-year deal with a 1-year player option in Miami. Like what we're used to athletes wanting the security of a longer contract. As LeBron James, and like I said, I've been reading a lot of Brian Windhorst because I want to know what the guy's thinking, or at least what he wants his camp to say he's thinking. Mm-hmm. Something that Windhorst has said is that in a situation where you're not getting market value, which you can't get that in the NBA, because he can't get that. The other thing he values is flexibility. And to see a 1-year, call it $21 million, what I think is the max he can pay him, 1 year, 21 with a player option. That would afford him not only the max salary he's looking for, but the flexibility come the end of the season to really judge a team on what it's done next year. I would say, for my money, I think he'd come over the top with the max deal. I think Bosh takes a haircut, and I think Dwayne Wade's playing somewhere else next year. Those are my 3 predictions for the big 3.
That last one's bold.
Hey, I'm a bold man. It's a bold podcast. Where do you see Carmelo Anthony in the end?
I think Melo's on the championship chasing train. He saw the rest of his draft classmates do it, and I think Houston has made every indication that they're going to prioritize him. I see Melo in Houston when all is said and done, which is going to make for just hilarious television.
Yeah, I think that it would work in Houston actually a little bit, if only because he's turned into more of a shooter in his older age, less of a slasher. The problem with the slasher on a Dwight Howard team is that lane gets crowded, especially with James Harden. I think if you can use him as a stretch 4 or even a big 3 and utilize his shooting and spacing, it can really help some of the issues that plague that Rockets team, not just in the playoffs, but like in the dog days of the season.
And
go ahead.
And what's appealing about the idea of that too is that they can re-sign Melo and still sign Chandler Parsons to a fair deal. If Patrick Beverley could run a competent point for him, the Rockets would be a problem.
I'm just really glad that we got to reference Chandler Parsons as a keystone for any team going forward. It's a big day for us. All right, let's go to the last, and I think possibly most entertaining story so far. So if you weren't paying attention to the NBA or NBA Twitter this weekend, story started to leak, I think it was Sunday morning, that Jason Kidd had pretty much, I'm going to use the language of Wojnarowski, a Yahoo writer, that he was playing a coup in New Jersey. Apparently he'd gone over the head of Billy King, who he's not in good terms with, and requested that he be made director of basketball operations. It's culminated, this blatant and little, very bold power grab culminated with a counteroffer from the Bucks to give him what he wants, director of basketball ops, more money, and the head coaching ship. Sorry, Larry Drew. And now the trade's gone through. I think they gave him a second-round draft pick, and now Larry Drew's unemployed. Jason Kidd's the coach of the Bucks and head of basketball operations, and my Mark Jackson to the Nets plan is working out beautifully.
See, what you didn't know about director of basketball ops with the Nets is that guy automatically gets a seat on Prokhorov's planes. Head coach doesn't get that. Head coach has to travel otherwise. So I see what Kidd was doing, but this story is just nuts because Jason Kidd was, by all accounts, at best an average coach this year. Took a team with a lot of talent and ran them into the ground until about January when they found their niche. And I just didn't realize people could claim to have the leverage that Jason Kidd claims to have that quickly. to where he could go over Billy King's head and then actually get that job with one of these other 29 teams. I'm impressed.
Well, I think it's a twofold effect on Kidd's part. One, he had a relationship with the one of the new owners in the Milwaukee, so he knew he had that back door there. But another thing
Was
is,
that his financial advisor?
I believe so. But another thing is that he, I thought that it wasn't too bold of a move to make the play in Brooklyn, if only because he's a guy who, for what it's worth, the growing pains early and the idiocy and the stupid and funny things that made SportsCenter, the guy turned into a better than decent coach this year. He managed a team of veterans, got them not only to listen to him, but to adjust to him on the fly as he's changing lineups. He was a more decent coach. He took the Heat 5. I didn't think it was as crazy as you do that he took the shot. And I think a lot of it's based in the ego portion of watching Kerr get the deal he got, and watching Derek Fisher get the deal he got. What for me, like you said, the extent to which he grabbed to ask to go over Billy King's head, that kind of made me wonder. But as you take more and more steps away from the situation, you're leaving a cash-strapped Brooklyn team with no draft picks and an well over the cap and aging roster for a young team with the second overall pick this year. The Greek Freak's there. Larry Sanders is there until they can trade him, which is going to give you more assets. It's a new ownership group. They're going to let you grow with them. You already have that personal relationship that apparently you never got with Prokhorov. Even if his plan was I don't think his plan was ever to have the Nets acquiesce and say, all right, kid, you got it. That would have been great. But I think this was his plan to force their hand because the deal was so quick to come from the Bucks.
The more I thought about it throughout the day after we discussed this morning, I think you're kind of you might be onto something there. The Nets, they're a retirement, a non-re-signing Paul Pierce, and then an injury away from being one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league next year. In which case,
and being completely
has no job security. He's got at least 2, probably at least 3 years to turn around in Milwaukee before anything crazy happens there. So to that point, I think you're right that he probably did orchestrate it, but just the way it was going about is just it's just comic gold.
I love it. Which of us hasn't A, wanted to be overpaid, or B, felt like, if I could do this job, do your job better than you, why wouldn't I ask for money and the opportunity to do it? It's great. It's like he walked in with his resume and said, "Oh, what position are you applying for? I'm applying for your job." Like it feels like and because the deal came so fast, and you can't prove, it's hard as hell to prove collusion. I mean, this is a great start for a fresh team. They're bringing a marquee name to a town that doesn't have any. It's a splash. It's a win on the Milwaukee side. Depending on what happens with the Nets, and it's like you said, the salary cap and the pending retirements, and the ability of them to attract a good coach, we don't know who's going up there. I guess the rumors are Mark Jackson, which I've just got my fingers crossed for. He'll just turn him. He'll we're going to wear the Knicks uniforms, and we're going to play in Madison Square Garden. And he wouldn't explain it. He'd just do it. I love it. We both read the Grantland article today, how much the Nets have lost this past season just because they wanted to win quickly. And I think that was not the right learning curve for Jason Kidd. Him with a young team and a brand new ownership group who have proven to believe in him before they even open the doors for the first time. This is going to be an interesting situation. For what it's worth, I think the Bucks are married to Kidd for at least 7 years, if anything, because he's going to set the course for the franchise from the basketball operations seat and on the court as a coach. And as he's setting the course, who's going to tell him that he's going the wrong way? No one. He has no one. He answers to no one.
You can no longer tell Jason Kidd a thing.
If he's going to have to evaluate himself, your 3-year window just became 7 years mighty fast.
I mean, this is a guy who was playing basketball like 13 months ago. And
he was missing jumpers for the Knicks 13 months ago. It's incredible.
He was playing Raymond Felton 13 months ago.
I have a serious question, though. With all these smaller guards getting head coaching jobs, 2 questions, really. When do I see Coach Iverson? I think it needs to happen. Georgetown's not great these days. They could use a little shot in the pants. Coach Iverson's walked me through that door. And the real burning question I know you and I have had for years, Coach Sheed.
I was hoping
Where's
you weren't going to go
Coach
there because I
Sheed?
was going to go there. With
I'm there. I live
mean,
there.
with the whole overthrow of the front office in Detroit, Coach Sheed is looking for a job. Um, you know, pretty much wherever we can get him. I'm playing a basketball game tonight at 10 o'clock. Sheed, if you're in Atlanta and you're hearing this, come over to Peachtree Presbyterian. You can be Coach Sheed, and we'll get you 1-0 on the resume, and we'll send you on your way. Coach Sheed, the next coach of your, let's call it Orlando Magic.
As someone who grew up playing church league basketball at PG Press, it's nice to see the tradition hasn't stopped. This has been Tucci Podcast for Monday, June 30th. We'll be back later the week with more World Cup stuff after USA vanquishes the evil Belgians tomorrow. Remember, kids, don't eat waffles. Don't eat Belgian waffles. Get Eggos. Those are the true American waffles. Also work as sporting clays. Chad Floyd is on Twitter at Chad Floyd. At Chad_Floyd. I'm at DPalm66. Subscribe in the iTunes store. Subscribe on Stitcher Radio. Leave 5-star reviews. We will catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening.